All right, so we are in week 7, which should be really fun because we're going to do something different for the next couple of weeks. Let me go ahead and allow that, right? Just FYI, hopefully it's on your radar already. The Word lab test is coming up on Monday for the online students. They may not see this until it's already passed. I did, and I will tell you, in Canvas, under this item, I did add some additional content to folks who might be using a newer version of Word because one student has already reported trying to do the lab test, and one of the first instructions asked them to do a cover letter that because they had a different version of Word, they didn't have. So if you look down through, make sure if you run into that, you scroll down to see that I've given a link to a Word doc that, and then I showed you how to bring that doc in, right? So this is only if what? What's the circumstance I'm talking about here? Yeah, you have a newer version of Word, which I think you're going to get if you get it out of the email system. Interestingly enough, I tried to get the latest version. It still wants me to get 2013. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, I don't know where. And I'm going to ask somebody who gets 2016 and who gets 2013. I'll try to figure that out. Don't know the answer. Okay? So just FYI. So that's just for the notes. I mean, just for coming up. Also, remember in week 7, which we're heading into, you need to give me your form results, right? So if you don't remember this, most people have gotten this where they gave me their form in week 6. If you haven't done it yet, you'll need to do that. And then when you complete, let me just do, there's an untitled one. Let me see, I think maybe I had it in my 15 directory, which is here. Let's see if I put it in there. Yeah, so when I'm looking at the form, right? So you're going to do your own form, right? Remember, 5 questions, 5 people. So check this out. When you want to report on your form for week 7, here's what you do. You go to responses. By the way, interesting, look at this. Look what percentage have Windows 10, right? So a large percentage have Windows 10. And then between Windows 10 and Windows 7 and then Windows 8. And less people with Mac, but still. And Mac students are going to want to make sure they get some of the information I'm going to talk about today. So here's what you would do. Very similar, very same process. Because some people were asking me, do you have to create the form in the Shared with Rio? And the answer is no, you can create it wherever you want. But when you go to report, that's what you do. Same thing, you do File, Print. Anybody remember what you do here to report this? Yeah, so change to save as a PDF, right? So change to PDF. And I did have a student that was using Firefox and didn't have that feature. So you can do an add-on if you happen to be a Firefox fan to do that. And then you would save to the PDF, upload to your, and in that case you would put the PDF in the Shared with Rio and give me a link. Okay? So that's what you need to do for the part of week 7. Your form results. So what I've decided to do this week is I have a series of 3 videos I'm going to have you watch. This is why this will be an incredibly short lecture. I'm going to have you watch the first one, which is the art of writing code, writing software. And this is really good because it really, if you have had, most of you have had no context to writing software. So this is good because we're moving into the part of our class where I know you may feel like you've been writing software, but you haven't been yet, okay? And this class is not a full-blown programming, but we at least want to give you an exposure. So this is a really good video I like about kind of the overview. And then I want you to watch what I had on track last week, which was a brief history of the user interface. Because man, has it changed, and it's really interesting to look at how it's evolved. And the last one I want you to watch is one that I think has really caught a lot of people's attention, and it's this one right here, which is the first 20 hours, how to learn anything you want. And he really talks about, you know, people get overwhelmed when they first start learning things and why. And he talks about if you can invest 20 hours, you can really amazingly increase your skills, which, by the way, by the time you get through this class, you're going to have had that 20 hours in coding and other things, okay? So this can apply to anything, but specifically you can apply it to what you're learning in code, because one of the things I've been hearing a lot from you all when I'm reading your input when you're writing about the Code Academy stuff is like, this is actually really fun. right? And here's what happens. Many of us have a mental block when it comes to coding. We think it's hard. And then you start doing it, it's like, oh, it's not that bad, right? So it's like anything, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And then you will reach a point where you have to just dive deeper and deeper depending on how much you want to get out of this, okay? So those are 3 videos, and use the headings, which is the title of them, for those 3 that you'll have for next week. Okay, so for the next 2 weeks, and this is where I'll kind of end for the day. For the next 2 weeks, we're going to do something that is a required part of this class. Is that in order for one of the things we have is we have these agreements with universities that take this class as a transfer class. And one of the things you have to do is you have to have some Visual Basic, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a start today. And then next week, we're going to create a very simple user interface for a form, which is basically anything in Windows is a form, okay? If you're running anything, and really even a Mac, but specifically, and Visual Basic is a Microsoft product, okay? So next week we're going to learn Visual Basic even more, and then the week after we're going to do some coding. So for the next 2 weeks, lecture is going to look a little different, okay? So, but I want you to know this, and this is why I want to go back to this concept right here. Those running Mac, now by the way, everyone in here, you should be fine, because the program you're going to need, which let me just go ahead and fire it up so you'll see it. It's called Visual Studio. Now what's loaded in here is Visual Studio 2012. But you can, if you're doing this work at home, which again, most of you probably will not, just because it's kind of a heavy download. I think it's like 4 gigs, so it's pretty good size. So why download it if you don't have to? But the online students will. And here's the thing, it only runs on Windows, right? So what do the Mac students do if they want to try to do this work? VirtualBox, very nice. You see the method to my madness from last week, right? Is that VirtualBox would be a way for Mac students to run this program. And I do this all the time, okay? So, but let me just give you, and by the way, I will give also a link to the download, but be sure, be very, very sure, if you download, you only get, and you can get the most current version, which is 2015. Believe it or not, for what we're going to use, there's not a significant difference between 2012 and 2015, because we are only going to use a very small part of a very involved program, okay? That's why you can get the most current version, and everything I'm about to show you will be there. All right, but again, this probably doesn't apply to you all. But the online students, I'm going to add additional requirement for this week. I want them to figure out, you know, go ahead and either download it or figure out an alternative. An alternative, well, let's see. How many of you know? What would be an alternative for this online students if they didn't want to download or if they were running a Mac? How else could they do it? They could come here. Remember, I hold an open lab on Tuesday and Thursday, right? After class from 2:20 to around 4, so they could do that as well. So we'll give you those links in there. So let me just show you. Let me run this. Let me go ahead and run it, right? I'm going to do Visual Studio, and again, 2012 is what we all will have in here. So this is what we call an IDE, an Integrated Development Environment. And I'm going to show you some basics. So I'm going to go ahead and hit a new project. And look at all these different kinds of things you can build with this, right? You can do the one we're going to do, which is a form app, and all the way down to Silverlight, which is kind of like the Flash version for Microsoft, ASP, which is a server side. So there's just a lot you can do. So good news is we're going to use the first one. We're going to use the form application, the Windows form. Now down here, this is really important to pay attention to. This is the name. So like next week, we'll do my program. And the other thing that's really important is the location where this thing is going to be saved. Okay? So I'm going to copy that. Who can tell me how I could go look at that directory right now? How would I look at that directory? Because this is telling me this is the name of the thing you're going to create. This is its solution, but this is its location. So here's what you'd do. You'd fire up Windows Explorer. And by the way, if you've never done this, you can just paste any, I know, right? Seems so simple now that I say it. But if you do that, you paste it, notice right now there's nothing in that folder, right? That's because it's going to build it. Now, why am I starting with this? Because ultimately, for the 2 programs we're going to do, you have to hand them to me. And based on the kind of file it's going to be hard to hand to me. And I'll show you why in a minute. Okay? So pay attention to two things, the name and the location. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to create it, and it'll take it a minute here to create the app or the program environment. And what it's doing here, like all the coding you all are doing with HTML and CSS, right? It's basically creating a page that you can then apply JavaScript to. Well, this has created all that without you doing anything but starting it up, okay? Which, by the way, guess what will happen if I go back to that directory? What's new here? Do you see it? Right? My program, and Ben. And I have to go even further, okay? So this is actually where this thing lives. And I want to show you why you want to know that in a second, okay? So there's a couple of things you want to just have in your environment. You want to have your toolbox open. By the way, have you ever used this auto hide feature? So right now, notice when I hit toolbox, it comes out and it goes back, right? So if I want it to stay out, I just say pin it or stop auto hiding it. So I do that, and I also want to do this. I want to do view, and I want to do output, and then I want to bring this over, right? But this is the thing you'll be working on in creating a short interface or a small interface next time. But I want to show you what it looks like when you actually run it. Very much different than the HTML and CSS. This, you hit start and you run it, and it creates, let me just, so you can really see this here, right? It creates that form automatically. So you didn't have to do any coding. You got it for free by just starting, and starting in this case means compiling it, right? But did you notice there's a new thing over on my directory? It's this thing right here. It's this exe. So this form is actually this file right here. So if I was actually, and by the way, when you have this thing open, like I do right here, you can't actually do anything to it. You actually have to, what we say, just stop running it. And then it kicks you back into the environment. You with me so far? By the way, when we're done, I'm going to actually have you all do this so you get a little hands-on experience with what I'm showing you, because me telling you will only go so far without you doing it. So what you'll end up doing next week is you'll drop these common controls, and these are common controls. These are common things you put on here, right? So buttons are common, labels are common, right? But let me show you this. I'm going to pull back that directory again, right? So if I run this right here, that's what we saw. Why am I not seeing those updates I did to there? Very nice. Actually, in this case, I didn't start it. Because starting it does this. It compiles everything and it puts it in that exe file. Okay? So let me actually show you that by actually stopping this. And I'm showing you this for a reason. Okay? I'm going to hit start. And now, see what it did? Is it took all those few things that I did and it put it on there. And I'll prove it to you by dropping it. So if I hit start here, what does it do? Compiles it. It compiles it, piles it all up together, puts the code, and it creates what we call an output object, okay? So, and here, what will happen now when I run this? So I'm running it directly from the exe. What will happen? Will it look different? What do you think? Will it look different? Yeah, it's going to look like those things that I added to it, because once you hit start, it recreates that exe. With me so far? Okay, so why am I talking to you about this? Because you're going to have to hand me an exe file. And when I say hand me, I don't mean hand me, right? I mean virtually hand me. What's the problem with an exe file? When computers see an exe, what do they think it is? Virus. So how can you can't email it to me, you can't put it in Canvas. How can you communicate or send this file? Is like this. You right click, let me show the screen, you do new, and you do a zip file. How many of you have dealt with zip files before? Yeah, so by the way, the My IT Lab, right? The files that you get, those are zip files. So I'm going to call it my program here, right? And all I did is I created a zip file, and now I'm going to drag this, click once, drag, and drop, and see how it's copying it? Boom. And I can tell I did it by double clicking in there. So now now that I've showed you that, how can you turn in your work for the next 2 weeks? What do you think you could do with this file now? You could submit it, but you just put it up on your Google Drive. You can put zip drive files up on Google Drive. You can't put the exe file because the zip actually is kind of like a little sandbox and it keeps it contained so it doesn't do bad things. Okay? All right, so just to kind of end for the online students, you online students are going to want to figure out how you're going to run this program because it is going to be a requirement for the next 2 weeks, okay? We talked about VirtualBox if you're running a Mac. If you want to download it, cool. If you want to come into the lab, that's cool. But you're going to have to do it because next week we do the user interface. The week after, we're going to do some coding in this. Cool? Cool? All right, believe it or not, that's all I have for now. So we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to everyone. Short, good lecture. And then we'll do some hands-on in class.